It can happen at any time. The art of the start. When you are forced or when you lead yourself to start over, how do you even begin to tackle it? A lot of us are facing transitions, whether they were forced by other people or whether we've decided to take a different path in our lives. Today we have Art Hopkins here. I find Art to be the master of the art of the start, and that's why I've invited him to join us today to lead this conversation about the process of starting over. Thanks for joining us, Art.
Thank you for having me, Lisbeth. And what a timely topic, I would say. I don't know about you, but it seems like out of everyone that that I talk to, whether it's clients or acquaintances, friends, family, it seems I would hazard a guess that the people that are transitioning, pivoting, changing to complete new directions in their life. I'd hazard a guess that it's in the 80 percentile, probably 90s. It seems like. So there's a lot of that going around, that's for sure. For one reason or another, like you say, life circumstances, whether it's on purpose or not on purpose. But then I think there we have it, right? We the people have that are experiencing this, find themselves there in that here I am in this pivotal moment, and perhaps I'm not quite sure where to go or what to do. You said art of the start, and I really love that. And I think about my experience as well. We've talked about this before in the past. I've had opportunities to do some major pivots in my life, and so I guess the question might be that a lot of them have, what exactly should I be doing now? Would you agree?
What? Yes, the question is always, I well, it's actually a phrase. I don't know what to do.
I
Right?
don't know what to do.
For a
Mhm.
lot of people, your first response is, I don't know what to do. Now what?
Now what? And it's the big question mark. Well, the good news is it's a good time to sit down and take a deep breath and take a moment to think about that rather than jumping straight in. Now, there might be pressures, financial and things like that, where it's like, I need to think of something to do. But it's a really great, wonderful opportunity. It can be scary. It can be overwhelming. It can be exhausting. We might be exhausted from the circumstances that put us in this pivotal spot and things like that. But it really is, I would say, turn it to the positive. It's a great moment to think about things. When I have these discussions with, like I say, lots of clients, lots of people that are doing these things, it's like, it starts coming around to, well, what do I really want to do with my life? And that's a wonderful thing, right? It's like we have this opportunity to do what we want to do, perhaps those dreams that we never followed years before, or as you say, there might be a big question. Like, I just don't know. The definition of overwhelm is lack of a plan. So it warrants some study. It warrants some deep questioning, some soul searching, if you will, looking at um, I would say that, goals, aspirations, things like that. Now that's pretty broad and pretty general. But then once we start zoning in on things like that, it's like, well, yeah, where do I go from here? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I start? Are they? I think it's a question of resources. Am I starting from nothing with nothing, or do I have some resources? And I mean things like, my connections, the people in my life, the money in the bank,
Mhm.
the talent that I have, like what skills do I have? Those are three, and time. A pivot might look really different for someone in their 30s than it does for someone in their 60s and things like that. So age and certain factors like that can apply. It'll definitely change the plan, that's for sure, right? So I would think a place to start is looking at resources.
Yeah. So do you recommend that you write out these resources and columns? Because obviously you have money is one of those big important factors that can really impact how you're able to make decisions, whether they are made with sanity or at the brink of losing grip on reality, right? there have been many stories of people that have jumped off bridges and jumped off buildings because they have
Ooh, yeah,
lost all hope, right? And
yeah.
there is always hope. It's just a matter of your mindset and being able to take away all of the noise and strip away that onion to get to your core.
You know, you bring up a really, really important point because it can seem when we're in the emotion, when we're in the frustration, like I said, completely exhausted, when we're in certain places in our life, it can definitely cloud our thinking. And it reminds me, if I may, of a little bit of a story, an anecdote about um, not having any hope, not having any solutions to these just insurmountable, overwhelming seeming problems that I'm facing right now. I watched a documentary some years ago. I don't know if it's okay to name it or not. It's called The Bridge. And it was about the Golden Gate Bridge in the San Francisco Bay in California and its reputation of being a suicide destination. People will plan to end their life by traveling to the Golden Gate Bridge and ending their life. And so there was a documentary done where this person set up cameras for a year and just filmed pedestrians. And they did catch a few suicides. And then it led into a deeper story about survivors that had jumped off the bridge. Why do I bring this dark topic up? Is here's the point. When they interviewed the survivors, there's about a dozen of them. I don't sure, I'm not sure the exact number, but there's a few that survived the fall amazingly, miraculously, that because that's a humdinger, right? They survived it. Now they all come from different backgrounds, different walks of life. Not really any commonality across the board, except that there's something had happened in their life to drive them to make this horrible decision. But there was one thing they all had in common is when they stepped off the edge, they were and past the point of no return. It's like I'm committed, no going back. Here I go. The solution to their problem became immediately clear, crystal clear. And I
Wow.
know, and that's pretty amazing. And so it always stuck with me. I mean, it's kind of a disturbing, context that we're putting in, but it just goes to show me that it's like, there is a solution to no matter what I'm going through, no matter what I'm facing, these changes. The bottom fell out of my life. Perhaps everybody left me. I have nothing. Woe is me, and the whole thing. And I don't say that flippantly. But there is a solution. But when we're in our emotion, the sadness, the hopelessness, the things that are stacked on top of it, they're just not. No, I don't know what to do. The lack of support, lack of knowledge, lack of whatever it may be. We're just not seeing the path to the solution. It is there, and we need to find it. And that's always stuck with me. And I think that if we talk about the art of the start, I think that's probably the best place to start is that there is a solution, even if it's not totally clear right now. There is a path, there is a way. It might be short, it might be long, there's work to do in front of us, that's for sure, but it does exist and we can take control of it. So that's what popped into my head about that. And so I guess that's it, right? It's about emotional control, mental control, finding the support. Because I guess there's different kinds of situations when we're pivoting. Some of it we're kind of headed in this conversation down the path of like it was unexpected, it might have been tragic. It's not a pleasant situation. I didn't wake up happy and healthy one day and just decide that I want to take a new direction in life, and that happens. And I know a lot of people that are making that choice too. But it sounds like we're kind of talking about that segment of the population where it's like, I lost my job. It was not planned. Something happened in my life that has forced me into this pivotal transition moment in my life. So, that being said, it really is about finding the support, right? Finding that knowledge, finding the things that are going to help right away to get emotions under control, to start building our support system. If we have no support system, we can definitely find one. I can attest from personal experience that there are groups out there for everything. I can think of so many examples. There's support groups out there for everything, and that takes some courage and a leap of faith to jump into things and be vulnerable. But I think the main point I wanted to make there is that there is a solution, and the answer is there. So now that we know there's an answer, there's a solution. Like, okay, how do we find? Like, okay, Art, I'm not going to jump off a bridge or anything, but I still don't know what to do, right? And this takes some self-examination, and I think again, it's about a couple things. Um, let's just kind of make up an example. I'm here. I am. Things have changed. Perhaps the factory closed for whatever reason. The family left. My job came to an end. Here I am. What now? So I need to
Can
back up.
we can we can
Mhm.
we can we take a
Of
break?
course.
Just okay. Can we make it about a fictitious person, because everything that we speak can turn into existence? So I don't want you to put this on you, and
Oh,
I don't know if if
yeah.
you make a practice of doing that or not, Art. But could we just make this about a fictitious person? Let's call them Sal. Is that okay?
That's fine. So this
Okay.
fictitious person is
Name
there, and,
Sal.
and here they are. They're sitting in front of us. Maybe they're watching
Yeah.
now too. And it's
Okay.
like, okay, let's
Hi,
let's let's
Sal.
think. Yeah, hi Sal. Let's think a moment of who you are, how old you are. Take stock of where I'm at in life and what my resources are. Do I have enough money in the bank to support myself? Am I in a hurry to increase my revenue? Let's and you're right, Lisbeth. It's like start making a checklist of my resources. So let's start with people. Who do I know that I can talk to for emotional support? Perhaps get some ideas, just bounce ideas off of. Who do I know that has been in this situation before, perhaps, or is going through it? I was talking to Sal was talking to their friend Sally 2 weeks ago, and it's like, Sally's in the same situation I am. Let me reach out to her and see, start gleaning that information. We're connected on the internet, and we have AI and lots of tools at our disposal to start looking at these things, right? And it's almost like taking inventory of what's going on in our life. What do I have? What kind of people, and I'm on people right now, what kind of people resources do I have in my life that could possibly help me out? Now, I might be skipping over the part where I do of ideas, right? Like, what is it that I want to do with myself? So it's taking a self inventory. It's like, okay, my resources, or I'm sorry, Sal's resources. It's like, Sal, what are your skills? What are your marketable skills? Are they, what are they? And let's look at, well, what skills perhaps have you always wanted to have, or what path have you always wanted? Did you have a dream of being a interviewer on Houston City Beat one day, yet you've never worked as such? It's like, oh, well, I've worked in restaurant all my life. I don't know how to be a media personality. Okay, well, let's start looking at that. What would it take to follow that path, right? What would it take to learn? Perhaps there's classes, and again, looking at people resources. Uh, Sal, Lisbeth over here. Talk to her. She does this for a living. She can give you some tips and some insight into these things that you're thinking about. So take stock of what we have around us. Start asking the questions. So like, I don't know if Sal doesn't know anybody in the industry. Well, Lisbeth, that I'm really, really fond of saying that we're only one or two people away from everything that we need, right? We just don't know which people they are until we
Yeah.
start asking around, right? It's
Yeah.
like, so phrasing those questions, here I am, what do I do next? I'm going, gosh, the questions could be many. I hope that's helpful. I hope that's helpful. So there's
It
taking
is.
stock, yeah,
Yeah.
of the people in our life. So inventory ourself. What am I equipped to do? What do I want to do? Is it possible? Like perhaps Sal is as old as I am and in the same shape as I am and has a dream of being an NBA star. Well, Sal and I are 60 years old and a little overweight and things like that. And let's knock off the things on the list that are just non-starters, right? Let's knock
Not
those off,
possible.
right? Yeah, not
So
possibles, right?
so
Uh,
do you really do you really think that there are situations that people just cannot achieve? Is that pretty much 100%? Or
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
achievable?
So our friend Sal will never be an NBA star, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean he can't be a part of the sports world or even the basketball world and things like that if it appeals, right? So yes, there are things. I'm probably not going, and I'm sorry, I keep using myself as an example. Sal is not going to win Miss Universe. He's not
Okay, okay.
qualified.
Let's
Things
agree. Let's
like
agree on that. Art,
yeah,
I think you will never win a Miss Universe
never gonna
pageant.
happen.
I'm just
Yeah,
gonna say that is a
yeah.
fact. 100%. Yes.
Now that this may sound like, okay, thank you, Captain Obvious, but there are certain things that we do want to be honest and truthful with ourselves. And this is where our support group can be important, as a matter of fact. Being sure we have those people in our life that are going to support us by telling us the truth, right? There are the people that will, oh, support us no matter what. Yeah, you can be an NBA star, go for it. And they're being loving and supporting, but not really in touch with reality, right? But I
Yeah.
think, and that might be a no-brainer as well, but it is important because we want to start dialing in on a goal. We want to start making a plan. Like I said, it's lack of a plan that's going on here. That's the key. We need
Yeah.
to make a plan, which, okay, pivots going on, transitions going on. Where are we going from here? And like I say, resources, our goals, dreams, ideas, and thoughts might start making that come clear. I love brainstorming, and I think this is where you know that I lean into connection. I lean into the
Yeah.
human to human element in our life. And this is where conversation and ideas will be really, really important. Really important. When we're by ourselves, I mean, we need that feedback. We need to bounce things off of other people. And again, those solutions, the paths, the doors that'll open to the new direction will start opening. They'll start coming clear.
Yeah. And what
Mhm.
about there's this concept that if you want to achieve a new way of a new life, let's say, there is a certain way that that new you lives, right? There's certain things that that new you does every day. As an example, if you're gonna worst case, this is, I guess, a bad example, but a good example because it's so extreme. If someone is gonna wants to be a drug addict, right? What do? There are certain behaviors that they do every single day to get to that situation. If someone wants to be a high earning, high achieving executive, there's certain things that they do every day to get to that level. If you want to have a successful business, you want your heart's desire is to be an entrepreneur because you've bought into the story that being an entrepreneur, you have control of your own schedule. Right, which is the funniest thing I've ever heard. But that's another story for another day. So
Yeah.
you want to be an entrepreneur, but you don't just want to be any entrepreneur. You want to be a successful entrepreneur, whatever that word is for you, right? So, what do you need to do in order to become that successful entrepreneur that you have envisioned in your heart? If that is what all of this change and transformation is leading you down. So, where do your habits come in to play here, Art?
The habits are very important. Absolutely. This is a great place. So, and what are those habits? Let's assume that Sal doesn't even know what those habits are. We have a goal. I want to excel at my business. I want to increase my revenue. I want to be fantastically, wildly successful. My best suggestion right off the bat, we live in a wonderful day and age where we can compress time. We can step into it the wrong way and do a 20-year plan of making mistakes and doing it all ourselves. But we are so fortunate that we have YouTubes and websites and all kinds of experts out there. I guess the bottom line is that go hang out with the successful entrepreneurs and discover what they do. What are they doing? And we'll find some commonality we find that, you know what, they're paying really close attention to their sleep cycle. They're paying really close attention to their health. In fact, those things, the health aspect, almost comes above the business aspect, those kinds of things. They're taking really, really good care of their bodies and their minds. They're not binging Netflix. They're reading books that are specifically personal development or, business acumen books. They're they're you know what I mean. They're
Yes.
ingesting the material that is
Mhm.
specific to the path that they're on. Even the big folks out there that we all have heard about, they do these habits. And so you're right. Now, mimicking those habits to the best of our ability is what we need to do. Absolutely. It's like, okay, and that could take some work. We can all attest to that, I'm sure. So I kind of like binging Netflix for a few hours every night before I go to bed. It's like, well, what if before you turn it on, you got that book that somebody suggested or you've heard it talked about? What are the successful entrepreneurs reading? Get that book because you can find these things out really easy and
Mhm.
buy it, right? Or get it or download it, whatever you have to do, and at least read one page. Habit creating new habits, that's a whole nother topic too. We could break down forever and ever and ever, right? But hey, we just have to start stepping into it. And you're right, that leads me to think about rewiring the brain. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're doing. Creating new habits. Exactly right.
Well, on a personal note, I was using a paper calendar to keep my schedule, and you know the story because we've been working together on
Mhm.
you're working with us to help us get to the next level with Houston City Beat. And my crutch was this stupid paper calendar that I would have to have the calendar with me physically to be able to schedule appointments. And because things are moving so fast, some of those appointments were going on my digital calendar, and I had a faux pas with you actually, and one of your really great connections that I never made that meeting because it wasn't in my paper calendar, but it was in my digital calendar. That was the day that I let it go. I threw away my paper calendar. And Art, let me tell you, you know this because we talked about it this morning. I am 100% on digital. And I know it's like, what year are we in, Lisbeth? It took you this long to go digital? Are you serious? But I had all kinds of excuses in my mind as to why I didn't want to go with an all digital calendar. And the biggest excuse that I had was that I didn't want someone else controlling my schedule. So I would create this link and put it out there, and then someone could go in and schedule whenever they wanted in my schedule until I realized that I can block my time. My schedule is still mine. I just give people options as to when I'm available. And that has completely changed the way that I present myself to the world every single day. And I've actually set 3 alarms. This is part of my new habit, Art. I've set 3 alarms at different times of the day to remind me to check my calendar, my digital calendar. And so far, so good.
I love, love, love where we're going with this because it's like when I work with clients or people and myself too, it's like it really does start with managing our time.
Yeah.
It really, really does. And you bring up a good point because that is the perfect example of what successful entrepreneurs don't do eventually at a certain level. Now, all of us can't just run out and hire a team of 7 people to manage our calendars and our life and things like that. But the electronic calendars are a start. Most people I know, we live and die by our calendars. We really do. The appointments start
Yeah.
coming, and as you say, they are important. We don't want to miss it. It's a busy life out there. Managing our time is crucial, extremely important. And I would say that's another thing too. When we're sitting down and taking stock of our resources, time is a huge resource. Remember, I was talking about people, money, and time. Those are huge
Yeah.
resources that we have. And so managing that correctly is going to be extremely important. I usually, when I'm helping people do their time blocks, we start with the healthy stuff. We start with yourself, like, okay, what's your routine? When is the energy level? Now, some of us, we're all wired a little bit differently. My My energy level is peak in the morning. I wake up like a squirrel, and then it's kind of a slow downgrade from there. So the really, really deep, good work that I get done, plus working out and those things that I can really just jump into with gusto, happen early in the morning. So that's the way my rhythm plays out. Right. And when I was constructing my calendar, because I think I did a classic entrepreneurial move too, where I'm putting business, grinding and hustling on the business above everything else. And well, it's kind of like dishes and laundry. There's always more to do and it's never quite done. And so I never really got to some of the other important things in my life, like taking care of my health and paying attention to family and other things that are
And we're back talking
back
about,
like we never left.
I know, we've been here all about this whole time, talking about time blocking. So we were talking about the importance of time blocking, prioritizing. This is all really about what to do when you are in a situation where you're restarting. The art of the start with Art Hopkins.
the art
What a great name. I
the
think
art
I'm
of the
changing.
start,
I
or
think I'm going to
maybe the
change my name.
restart. I think we're talking about
Re-
restart.
we're talking
Yeah,
about restart.
yeah.
But what if you never started to begin with? What if you never really started for real to begin with? This is the art of the start because you can create for yourself a beautiful life that you never had before.
And I love the way you said that, Lisbeth, because some people very close to me say, it is so cool about the place that we live, and actually this applies to a lot of the modern world out there, is that we can literally create something out of nothing that can be wildly successful. We can recreate ourselves or continue to build ourselves, might be accurate, because I heard years and years ago that the purpose in life is to discover who we are. And it's a job that just goes on and on and on. And I guess I could attest to that because it's really, really changing and building and being the best person that I can be. A good friend of mine, who's a coach, has a saying about, hey, think of what would your elite self look like? What would your elite self be doing right now? What would that, we were talking earlier before we got interrupted about the things to do, right? It's like, where are we going with all this? And that actually, that might be a good thing when we're talking about pivoting and transition. Was it our fault? Did I make mistakes? Did I put myself in this situation? So I think we've kind of identified three things just to recap. The art to the start, taking inventory of ourselves, where we're at, where we've been, and where we're going, and what is that going to take? Writing those out, getting feedback from people, really getting honest with ourselves. I have to recalibrate and do that once a year at least, it seems like, or maybe it's 100 times a day. I'm not sure, one of the two. So taking inventory of ourselves, taking doing an analysis of our resources, and then we were getting into our time, and that's one of our resources. And that almost stands by itself because I was thinking earlier, Lisbeth, you and I had talked about this topic earlier in the day today about this whole thing time. And I realized, like, that's where everything we do, everything we plan falls into this place called time, right? And it is a very, very precious and valuable and finite resource that we need to be really, really good stewards of. And so we were talking about time blocking and things like that. But I think really zooming out a bit, that's really important to get that our time is extremely important. We want to become masters of our time, masters of our time, masters of our calendars, masters of what's going on. Should we be delegating things? Another good coach friend of mine, I'm going to quote him right now. He says, delegate everything but your brilliance. We were talking earlier about your calendar, Elizabeth, and you had said something interesting about, well, I don't want other people in charge of my schedule, when in fact, successful entrepreneurs, successful business people absolutely pass that on to other people. Like, please take care of my
Yeah.
schedule. I don't want to be the one, because as we get busier and life things are building, and then it starts to get a little overwhelming managing our calendar. Maybe we're not that great at it. I know I had to be careful about double booking and triple booking, which then it put me into a spot, right? Where I had to, with my hat in my hand, cancel things and reschedule things. all the time. And that's just not quite exuding the professionalism that I want to, that my elite self wants to put out there. I want to be absolutely in charge of my calendar. I was not giving myself buffer time between appointments on Zoom calls
Yeah.
and calls like that. I would schedule a 30-minute call from 12 to 12:30, and the next one's at 12:30. And guaranteed you're always running a couple minutes over and things like that. So we get a little sloppy. So it's about cleaning up that slop with our time schedule, putting buffer time in there as soon as we can, have a remote worker or a VA or an assistant or someone to manage our schedule. That's really, really, really helpful. And these days, it's not as out of reach as we might have thought it was in the past, where, oh, executive assistants, that's something only really wealthy people do. Well, not so much anymore. It's affordable. These things are manageable. And with the automation tools that are out there, we can really, really start taking charge of our time blocks. The hard part is discipline, rewiring our brains. Like you said, Lisbeth, it was like, I'm going to assume it was almost like breaking up with a dear friend, right? Like your paper calendar that you love, and you probably draw little pictures in it, and it's a part of you. It's an extension of you. You probably got really
Mhm.
excited when you had to buy a new one for the next year. We become attached to these things. Old habits are hard to break. They really are.
Well,
And so,
the
but leaning into it is crucial.
the problem with I have a little bit of ADHD, probably a bit of ADHD. I heard the other day that ADHD is actually something that we learn over time because of how we live. We develop this inability to have attention, and there might be something to that. I'm not a doctor of that type of study, but I have experienced it in my life. I don't think I was like this when I was little, but maybe I'm wrong. One of the things that I have learned is that I can actually, to your point about double booking, I go 5 days out, a whole week, and I block. If I have 3 appointments that day, I block the rest of the day so that no one can come in and sneak appointments in there. Because if you're driving to some of these appointments, depending on where you live, if you live in a city like Houston, there's no telling how much traffic you're going to come across, right? And to always be running late is such a stressor for people that do not like to run late. And I used to be one of those. I would be late everywhere I went. I was even born late. So that was my excuse back then. I was born late.
And
I
it's
would get to
stuck, right?
places.
It just
Yes,
stuck for the rest of your life.
it stuck. And then one day I remember I was driving down I-10 Katy Freeway, and I was sweating bullets because I was running late. And I started reflecting on my choices. Why am I always running late? Why do I have to live this way? Is there a better way to live? And at that moment, I made a choice, a decision that I was never going to be late again. And I can count on one hand the times I have been late, and it just doesn't happen anymore. And the same story holds true for my calendar. Now, the day that I decided, after that embarrassing situation that I had with you and your client, that I missed that meeting, it still bothers me today. And it's been a week and a half already. I let go of that paper calendar because all it was doing was holding me back. And one of my great friends, Crystal Gomez, she told me a few weeks ago. She said, "You're either the employee of your calendar or you're the CEO of your calendar, and you need to make a choice. You need to make the decision of which one you're going to be." And
And that,
that was
yeah,
my
yeah.
turning point.
Yeah, and that's I use that term, master of our schedules. We need to
Yes.
we are the ones in control. We need to master our schedule. And that you bring up all kinds of neat things there that we could unpack. And I think something that popped into my head is like put ourselves in the other people's shoes, right? Do I appreciate it when people are late to the meetings that we schedule? Not so much. Those kinds of things. So our behavior needs to match what we are. I mean, we're setting an example for one. And you had mentioned something interesting too about, attention. It's a really, really busy, busy, busy world out there. And especially here in this country, it's part of our culture. Hurry up, bigger, better, faster, more. We're always trying to do that. And also on the flip side of that, of managing time, there is such thing as doing too much. There is such thing as just stacking way too much in there, right? And so that's why I say start with the personal part of your life. Okay, we're gonna build our calendar here. I'm gonna build it out by the day, the perfect week, the perfect month. And of course, we're painting with a broad brush, and this is we need foundation, we need a guideline. Of course, there's going to be exceptions. There are going to be things that are out of our control, or there's that convention on the day that I usually don't do anything. And I say that because it's very, very important to have a rest day during the week. My day is Sunday. I had mentioned when we were talking earlier, Elizabeth, that I'm really, and as an entrepreneur, I think we're kind of crazy. We're like crazy artists, right? And we just always want to paint, which is we always want to be building our business and working on the, whether it's our marketing plan or our websites or making appointments or these things. And it almost is like, gosh, it's almost against, it's not in our blood to slow down and stop and relax and rest. But it's crucially important, right? Very, very important. So we want to find that rest day in our life where we can unplug, because the statistics are out about the what screens are doing to us, right? What too much internet is doing to us, what too much busyness is doing to us, and all of these things. And so we really need to unplug, take that day to get it. Me personally, it's like I want to get screen free. I haven't achieved 100% yet, but I'm working on it. And so if we back up and look at the calendar, think about, first of all, the personal life, the health components, the family components, and the personal time components, because you have to take care of yourself. And if you and the spiritual components are very important as well. That should be number one, is your spiritual connection. Number two should be yourself. Now that may sound selfish, but selfishness is an interesting thing. If we were gauging it, there's too much selfishness and there's being too selfless, and we want to find everything is balanced, right? Find somewhere in the middle on that perfect taking care. How am I going to be good for the people that I love and my clients and all the people I interact with and do wonderful things in this world if I'm not healthy, if I'm not taking care of myself first? So we want to plug those things into our calendar first, right? And that could be, the meditation, working out, taking a walk. It varies for everybody across the board, but fill the calendar with those times first. So I'll use my calendar as an example. Those were those morning times. I've got I'm an early riser. It's a wonderful time of day for me. I put a lot of my personal things in there, personally, because nobody's awake yet. It's a wonderful thing, right? So I got all this time to myself. I have recently decided to take an actual lunch break, an hour where I walk away, get
What?
out, get outside,
Are you
let some sunshine
serious?
shine into my eyeballs and walk around and breathe the air and get outside. I saw this thing about just getting outside that changed my life. I can't remember the name of the documentary now, but
Wait.
it was crazy. Yes.
Time out. Time out. So you're telling me, Art, that you take an hour for lunch?
Yeah, yeah, and I'll tell you, it's a wonderful thing. It's beautiful because I work at home, and so
Yeah.
I have the luxury of being able to, about 30 minutes of that is going and whipping up my lunch, sitting down and eating it, and not working at the same time, physically removing myself from my office space here, not bringing the laptop with me, not bringing the phone, and those kinds of things, and enjoying my meal and what I can see out of the window. And I have a pool outside, and so if I can take my lunch outside, and I go flip myself like a burger out by the pool. I set my time, so my 30 minutes of lunch is over, and then I have 30 minutes to go get some oxygen, some sunshine, and some just me time. And I literally get out there, if the weather's right. If it's not, I'm out on the balcony, but I'm just outside,
Yeah.
even if it's standing right outside the front door and if the rain is pouring. And I'm telling you, for me personally, that's been a life changer too. So the point is that getting all these personal rituals laid out on the calendar first, and then fill in the family, significant others, those kinds of things, the people, because that's still, there's an overlap to personal there, right? That's important. the family time, the significant other, the wife, the husband, the kids, friends, grandma, whoever it might be, those kinds of things. Be sure we plug them into the calendar, because that we want to devote our entire self to them as much as we can, right? Because hey, again, I'm a nerd and I love these studies and things. And how many times have we heard from people that are closer to the end of life than anywhere else? And one of the biggest regrets that they say across the board is, I wish I'd spent more time with
With
my
my
friends or my
family.
family or those
Yeah.
people. And it's like, how sad, right? I don't
Yeah.
want personally don't want to be the person that says that. And in fact, it rings true, because when I examine my life and how busy I'm an entrepreneur, it's
Mhm.
I have put uh, those people on the back burner, or sometimes they're not even on the stove. I haven't even taken them out of the cabinet to start preparing the meal, if we're going to use that analogy, right? And so
Yeah.
getting that stuff on the calendar, and then to kind of to move on to the business side, of course, it's like, okay, so I've got my personal blocks, I've got my people block. Oh, and sleep is important. We could break that down for a long time. So make sure you're getting your 7 hours of sleep. People are going to debate that, but get that 7 hours. And if you can be consistent with the timing, practice good sleep hygiene. That's a whole nother conversation too.
Yeah.
That's crucial too. So we've got a good portion of our calendar filled up, and now we fill in the rest with our business, right? With our working life and
Mhm.
those kinds of things. Now we can zoom out at the calendar and look at things like vacations and stuff like that. But on the topic of business, we don't want to just call it, okay, so between these hours, I'm working on the business. Well, whoa, what
Yeah.
exactly are we working on? And if we simplify it, we can look at you know, there's six sectors of business, but one of them is us when we're working on ourselves. So we covered that already. The remaining five, marketing. So we want to schedule specific marketing time. And there's sometimes a lot of the entrepreneurs out there can probably relate to this. We're really good at what we do and not really the greatest marketers sometimes. But so we need to lean into that. In my experience, we find that marketing and finances are usually the top two weakest areas of your average entrepreneur. So anyway, we want to set aside the marketing time. We want to set aside the sales time, which is different than marketing, right? Sales, we're on
Mhm.
the phone, we're following the leads, we are putting ourselves in front of the people, trying to close, trying to make conversions and doing those things, right? Leaning into sales. A good portion is going to be operations, right? And I
Yeah.
mentioned money. We got to keep our eye on the ball. We got to, I mean, that's kind of what it's all about when you think about it. Yes, we're providing wonderful products and wonderful services and wonderful ideas to our clients and to our people, and we're helping people and we're doing all the wonderful things, but we need the money to do it, right? Revenue is extremely important. I can help lots more people with $10 million than I can with 10,000. So if I can keep raising the bar there, life is going to be good, not just for myself, but for those whom I touch. And that is extremely important too, because there's this kind of mindset we have about money, right? Where it's like, ooh, we shouldn't like it too much. There's the old thing, the love of money is an evil thing and all these things. And that came, I'm not talking about greed or avarice, right? But we do want to boost revenue, right? That a lot of helpful things have a lot of great things happen. A lot of problems can be solved with money, right? So that's the whole point. But
Yeah.
anyway, why do I say that? So, but again, that's usually a weak area with entrepreneurs, and I have been horrible with this in the past. It's like I'm here to confess in front of the world that that is my weakest area. I don't want to look at the spreadsheets and do balances and P&Ls and all the things, but it's interesting because it is it's really important. And so I have been retraining myself to learn about it, to pay attention to it, to know how to have a conversation with my tax planner and my CPA and those kinds of things. But what I'm getting at is to put it on the calendar every week. Every week, look at the books. A good rule of thumb, if not every day, but if you can't stand it every day, wrap up the week financial Friday. Set aside an hour minimum, right? It might not even take an hour, because once we're caught up, It really started like, okay, here's the bills, here's the debt, here's what's coming in, here's what's going out. I know what my financial picture is, and that's going to set me up for success for the following week, right? Because I
Yeah.
know exactly where things are at. So what did I say? Marketing, sales, operations, finance, and then lastly is teams, right? People.
Hmm.
So the
Yeah.
teams. And if you don't have a team, we can be working on getting a team. What would that first hire look like? We talked about remote work and VAs and assistants earlier. It's like, how soon, how much money would it take to get that first assistant that could really, really save you 10 hours a week? If you're not the one that's maintaining your socials, if you're not the one that's doing data entry all the time, it's like, how soon and how much would it cost? I have that number in mind, because then we've set a goal. And you were talking about speaking things into existence, right, Lisbeth? It's like,
Yeah.
let's find that out. Like, okay, recently clients of mine, I'm like, hey, we did the math. If for $120 a week, you can get 20 hours of work done by someone else. And isn't that a beautiful thing? And so there's a goal to have, right? Managing our teams, very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That is
Yeah.
definitely true.
So what I'm doing, without getting into the nuts and bolts of what all those means, but we're managing time, right? So planning those time, like, and I mentioned teams. Are we having enough meetings per week with our team? We should be having an operations meeting once a week, a strategy meeting once a week, and a culture meeting, which is, keeping spirits high and having fun. And those things, not so much about business as it is about celebrating the fact that we're doing these things together at least once a month. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb. And that can vary from business to business and person to person, but very important.
Yeah. Yeah. And we started this conversation with, what do you do when you find yourself in a position where you're starting over, whether you've been forced to or you've made a decision to start over because your life has changed? And we talked about things like reach out to people that can give you great advice, but you have to be careful with that because sometimes people give bad advice, right?
That's a
And
fact.
AI is not the place to go to get advice, right? Because AI sometimes can be our best cheerleader, right?
That's a fact. AI is it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful creature, AI, and it does a lot of things, but without the human element, and why not? It's like getting an estimate. You want to get three, right? It's like getting a
Yeah,
second opinion from the doctor. I want to know as much about this new direction in my life as I possibly can from everyone that I can, including AI. AI is good for some research here and there, but like you say, maybe not so great on personal advice and things like that. But utilized
yeah,
correctly, it can do some great things. But I think the important point there is that in conjunction with the humans around you and the use of AI, we can do spectacular things. I mean,
yeah.
AI is compressing time, and we can go on and on about the wonderful things that it's doing. But you've got
That's
a really
true.
good point there. It's really, gosh, if we we've been unpacking it quite a bit into bits and pieces and details, and really just barely scratched the surface on getting
Yeah.
on that path of developing the new plan, the new direction. But I think we started with people. We started with ourself, right? Like really getting down and dirty about, okay,
Mhm.
what is it I'm going to do? Be realistic about things. But I also want to put I was talking about being realistic, and I was making fun of like, well, I'm not going to be a sports star anytime soon and things like that. But I don't want to downplay the fact that some of our most wonderful dreams and goals can absolutely come true. And we want to pursue those. It's like, am I 100% positive that I can't be an NBA star? Maybe. But you see what I'm getting at? It's like, what
Yes.
are those
Yeah.
dreams and goals, and lean into it and study them, and let's find out if it's don't throw it away. Especially now, we were talking about people, and you're right, there's bad advice out there. And that's
Yeah.
something else that we find that the successful people are doing, are being very, very selective about whom they surround themselves with. And I'm not talking about surrounding ourselves with yes people, they just agree with me all the time. But I mean really, really solid, smart, truthful, honest, wise feedback, and those, the people that aren't afraid to tell you the things that you don't want to hear, not in a a harsh way and things like that. But you know what I mean. It's like creating our brain trust. And
Yeah.
that being said, something I've had to do in my life, and it wasn't easy and it wasn't pleasant. It was it was the choice. There was two choices I could make, and they really both sucked, right? But the one that was the best one was actually carving out certain people out of my life because of that reason. And some were family members too. It was very, very difficult, heartbreaking, and things like that. However, in the end, it was the best thing to do.
And those choices are not always easy, but once you make them, life becomes a lot lighter. So, looking
It
at the
really does.
people, yeah. So, looking at the people, looking at your skills, where you're at, where you need to go to be able to get to that place, and which is called brainstorming. And then the next part of that is goal setting, which then leads us to managing your time, managing your calendar effectively in a way that is conducive and embraces modern society, because we do live in this world of a digital age and there's no turning back. So get rid of those paper calendars, throw them out, and fully embrace that digital space.
Absolutely. I love what you say about goals. Keep your eyes on the prize. What
Yes,
is a quote from, and I might be slaughtering the quote a little bit, but I think it was Jeff Bezos that said, "Be rigid on the goal, but flexible on the details," and that's
that's
important
right.
too. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. So, Art, that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your wisdom with us. And I look forward to doing more of these and taking deep dives into not just personal development, but 2 weeks ago, we met with all the community connectors and we did a script, your pitch script, and it was a fantastic environment. And I know that all of the community connectors that were present really enjoyed it. And we have another session coming up this week, which I'm really excited about because I'm going to get to see you on camera as well as part of everybody else that's part of it. Because this last time you were actually leading the workshop, which was fantastic. Thank you so much. So with that, I would like to say thank you, my friends, for joining us. And for more community stories, you can find us on HoustonCityBeat.com. I'm Lisbeth Newton, and we'll see you on the next story.